and welcome to part 2 of my video on the Black & Decker bandsaw repair. In part 1 I showed you the problems with the saw and how I took the machine apart and removed the motor. In this part I'll show you more of the motor, how I dismantle it and put it back together again and fit it back in the saw. So let's get on with part 2. So next job is to take the motor apart. Let's see if I can rewire it. So what I'm going to do, first rule of taking a motor apart, is to mark the casing so you get it back exactly the same. So I'm just going to put a little mark on my screwdriver down so I know where it come apart. And I'm hoping that I can get the stator out and replace the wires without taking all this contraption off, because I bet that's going to be a job to get off. That pulley's been on there a heck of a long time and I bet it's a job to get off. One day, someday, mainly on a Sunday, as my mother used to say. Ah, that'll do the job, look, perfect. I'll pop that on there. See, having the right tools makes a big difference, doesn't it? I mean, you can spend ages with a pair of pliers trying to... I mean, I do myself. I'll spend ages with a pair of pliers trying to struggle to get a nut off, rather than spend the time popping in the workshop and get a proper spanner to do it. It's human nature, I suppose, and it's much easier if you get the right tool, isn't it? Oh, I hope this ain't going to be an awkward job. I don't like awkward jobs. I've had enough of awkward jobs. They're just little screwed rods with a nut on either end. Right, so now we've got the 4 bolts out, it's a question of breaking the motor apart. Alright, and I'm going to turn the camera off while I do this so that you don't see me wreck the thing. In doubt, give it a click. Ouch. Right, so I think that should come off. There we go. I got that off. Oh, there's a little sprung washer there. Don't lose that. That goes behind the bearing where it fits into the housing here. That goes in there, so don't lose that if you take one of these apart. I'm going to have to extract that bearing off, and that's going to be a bit awkward because somebody's got a chisel or something and sort of riveted the ends of it to stop it coming off. So I'm hoping that'll come off, because I'm going to have to take that off and take this plastic fan off to pull the stator out, because I need to get the wires at this end, and I don't think I can do it any other way except taking the stator out, and I can't take the stator out with this in. Right, I've got a couple of bearing extractors. I'll try this one first. Put that on there. Hopefully it'll come off. See where it all goes wrong for. Oh, it's moving. There's a little bearing, look. So it's a double shielded bearing. It's still alright after all those years, so we got that out of the way. Let's put that out of the way. Now the next thing is to get this off. I don't know how. Hopefully it's just pushed on, but I don't want to break it because plastic gets very brittle, doesn't it? And I can't force it because of the field coins, but I've got to get that off before I can take the stator out to replace the wiring on it. I would imagine it's just a push fit. Yes, it is a push fit. I'm lucky, folks. It's my lucky day. It's coming off. But I don't want to break it. So I've got to prise this fan off, but I don't want to damage the field windings. I've got these long nose pliers. I'm just going to try and put those down and try and ease it off gently. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get a bit of something and put behind them to stop it damaging the wiring. Plastic sheet. I'll try that. And it's just going to go down there. Oops. I'm trying to force the... there we go. See, it's coming off. I don't want to damage those windings. Oh, it's going. I'm going to pull it off now. There we go. There we go. Got a little fan off. Make sure you notice which way it goes on. It went on that way. I must remember to mark the field winding position. So what I do, I'll find the mark I put when I took the casing apart, and I'll put a little mark on the windings so I know exactly which way to put them in again. So I'll put a little mark there. Now I'm hoping I should be able to pull the windings out now. I've got the mark on it. They're tight, but they should come out. They wouldn't be screwed in, they're just held in. See if I can prise it out with the screwdriver. Yeah, it's going, but very gently. Just work your way round. When you're doing a job like this, don't try forcing it from one point. Just work your way around gently, a bit at a time, and gradually force it out. And hopefully it should come out. There, it's going, look. The main thing is you don't want to break anything. Oh well, How's the job getting that out, folks? With using this tool and prising it round bit by bit like that, I've just managed to get the winding out. I'll mark where the wires come out so I know where the wires come out there. Get the right spot. I'll put a little mark there. So now I can get the stator out. There we go. Right, there's the stator, covered in sawdust as you would expect. And that's the rotor inside there, look. That's the actual rotor. There are no carbon brushes in this type of motor. It's an induction motor, which is obviously the most reliable motor you can get. They're wonderful, these motors. They go on practically forever. This is a stator with the windings in. You very rarely get a problem with these. But these are the, you can see these are the wires. Even right down here, look, where it goes into the stator, you can see they've rotted away. They're corroded. That's going to be very difficult. I've got to be so careful with that because I don't want to, if they're shorted in there, I'll never be able to fix it. That's going to be very tricky doing that. It's a shame because if that's shorted out inside there, the thing's useless. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad I turned the camera off while I was doing this wiring because I've had a hell of a job with it. I've got the wires on, but my God was it a job. The wires were so corroded, there was very little showing, and what I've done, as you can see, I've fitted new wires on and I've used a lot of hot melt glue around them to try and keep them in place because otherwise they're just going to tear the wire off of the actual field coil. So I'm hoping that hot melt glue will keep the wires in place. I have checked them for continuity and there is continuity through the circuit, so it should work when I put it back together, providing I don't pull the wires off when I'm putting it in because they are very, very delicate. And they were right down close to the field coil where I joined them, and I'm hoping it'll work. I've got nothing to lose though, so now what I've got to do is get the thing back together without damaging pulling the wires off. I'm going to have a job getting this coil back in, I think, because you saw the difficulty I had getting it out in the first place. I just hope it works, because if it doesn't work, the thing's scrap really, because don't know whether you could get a new motor or whether it would be even worth it if you could. I've got to sort of do it gently. Well, that's the position where it came out, so now I've just got to force this in somehow, which is not easy. So it's very, very tight. I'm going to use this little block of wood and then use it gently to tap the coil in place. It's got to go in a long way yet. I've got to watch these wires all the time though. I don't want them to get pulled off after I've spent so much time. I'll tap it a bit each side, it should eventually go in. We'll get in there. I think that's about it. So next thing is I've got to pop that fan on. Make sure I get it the right way up. It went on like that, didn't it? That pushes on there. We'll see if it's in far enough, because if that hits it, we know that's clearing the coil, so I imagine the coils are in far enough. Then we got the bearing. I'll see if I can put the bearing in the frame first. Make sure I get this lined up again. Look for the mark. There's my little mark there. Always try and put it back together the way you took it apart, so it goes on that way like that. What I've got to do is put the bolts through and then pull it up gradually. If you put all the 4 nuts and bolts on and then do them up bit by bit, it should go together quite nicely, hopefully. One nut missing. Now spend half an hour searching for the nut, which I should have taken more care of. Spend half an hour doing the job and 2 hours finding the nut. I'll have to see if I can get another one. Small assorted nut boxes, and when I found a nut for it, the original one that I've lost will turn up, no doubt. That's what usually happens. Let's try that one. There you are, how's that? That'll do the job. Put that on. It's difficult work on these gloves, but it's so cold, my hands are freezing. Right, that's all the nuts done up, so hopefully that should work. I've got to put some sleeving on that, where it comes out of the motor. I'm going to find another bit, I think, because that's a bit hard. I use this bit of blue sleeving because it's a bit softer than the original. Now hopefully that will do the job. I'll have to replace these wires on the capacitor. As you can see, they're damaged anyway, but I'm just going to try and use it temporarily to test it out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try and run the motor up while it's not in the machine, just to see if it works. Don't try this at home, folks, unless you know what you're doing, because it could be dangerous. I'm going to try and connect it up out of the machine to see if it works. I won't need to put it in the vice because it's an induction motor, they're quite quiet running. I've got to put that one and the black one has to go together into the neutral side. I hope I got this right, or else it's going to be a loud bang, folks. So we'll just connect that one up there, and that one in the live, and when I switch on, like the blue touch paper, folks, when I switch on it should work. And all I've got to do, if I close that, the motor should work. If it don't work, I'm in trouble. There you are. How's that, folks? It works. It works! See how nice and quiet that is? Induction motor. The best motor you can have. They don't run fast. I mean, it would be no good in a vacuum cleaner because it wouldn't go fast enough. I mean, this one runs at 1500 RPM. Some of the ones in the typical Hoover vacuum cleaner can run up to 21,000 RPM. You wouldn't get much suction off that, would you? But for a bandsaw it's ideal, and it's so reliable. That thing will outlast the life of the machine. Well, that seems to run alright, doesn't it? So I can put it back in the machine now, hopefully, and it'll work. I'm glad that works anyway. So what I'll do, I'll put it back in, and then I'll come back a bit later and show you it working, hopefully, if it works. Well, that's all for part 2. In part 3, I'll show you the motor back in the machine and the connecting up of it, and I'll also hopefully show you the machine working. So I'll see you again in part 3. Bye for now.